So I thought I would do a Mike Oldfield tier list. This is the first tier list I've ever done. I downloaded a free tier list creator and I decided to have a bit play around. And Mike Oldfield is one of my most favourite artists of all time, so I thought who better to start with than Mike Oldfield. Before we start, it's worth mentioning that I don't dislike any Mike Oldfield album. I like them all, but I'm realistic enough to know that a lot of his albums are weaker than others, and some of them have got some very weak moments on them. So obviously those albums will feature further down in the table. I've never come across a time in a Mike Oldfield album or track where I thought, well, this is awful, I've got to skip this album or I've got to skip this track. No, I don't feel that way about any of his music. So anyway, I've set this up. Looks like it's going okay. Got all the albums listed in the bottom. All 26 studio albums. So I'm sticking to the studio albums. I've included the Killing Fields soundtrack because for all it's a soundtrack, it still is a studio album, so I've decided to put that one in. I haven't included any compilation albums, obviously, or live albums, although to be fair, he's only ever done one official live album. I've just stuck to the core 26 catalogue albums, the studio ones. So without further ado, I think we'll start. So first up is Tubular Bells. Well, obviously Tubular Bells is his masterpiece, his debut album. In my eyes, completely faultless album. I like it from start to finish. There's not a weak moment. This is one of two albums that my mother had on vinyl and I played it to death when I was a kid. And that's how I really got into Mike Oldfield. The other album was Platinum, but listening to Tubular Bells and Platinum really whetted my appetite to start collecting more Mike Oldfield. So this album, obviously, it has to go into excellent. Next up we have Hergest Ridge, which is his follow-up, his second album. Now Mike Oldfield himself doesn't rate this album very highly, but I know a lot of fans do, and it's included in his golden trilogies, his the best 3 albums that he's ever done. So I like Hergest Ridge. I like all the mixes. I know a lot of people don't like the 2010 mix, but I like all the mixes. I think it's like having the same album but approaching it from different viewpoints, different dimensions, and I just love it. Hergest Ridge, obviously another excellent effort from Mike Oldfield. Now in each tier later on I'll shuffle them round as to what I think's best to worst in each tier, but for now I'll just keep them the way they are. His third album, Ommadawn, considered by many Mike Oldfield fans to be his absolute finest album. I would disagree with that. I really do like Ommadawn. Obviously it's another excellent album. But there's a few more albums further down the line which I enjoy more, but Ommadawn is still going into excellent. Okay, next up we have Incantations. Now Incantations is a bit of a strange album. It's like a transition album from what he was doing with his first 3 albums to what he would do with Platinum and onwards. It's an album of 2 halves. A lot of people will know the story of why it's an album of 2 halves. as this was around the time he was doing his exegeses or whatever you call it, his self-help therapy course, and it changed the way he approached his music. So parts of the album are definitely on par with his first three albums. This is the first album where I find some parts weaker than others. For instance, I think the Hiawatha bit on part 2 goes on a bit too long. I still like it, but it gets a little bit monotonous after a while. There's bits of part 4 which the vibraphone bit I'm not really that struck on, although it does redeem itself when the guitars come in. But this album, for me, the finest moments has got to be Incantations Part 1 and the guitar solo on Incantations Part 3, which is absolutely stellar piece of guitar playing from Mike Oldfield. So quite a few positives on this album, with a few little bits of negative which brings it down a little bit. So I'm going to put Incantations into very good tier. Platinum. Now Platinum, as I've mentioned before, is the second album of the two my mum used to have on vinyl, which I played to death when I was a kid. And for a lot of years, Platinum was right up there. Listen to it now, I still love the album, I really do. I love side 1 the best, the Platinum Suite. Side 2 is let down a little bit by the Into Wonderland and I Got Rhythm. They're okay songs, but you can tell it was just starting to go into a more commercial direction. I've since heard the album as it was intended before they decided to change the track Sally to Into Wonderland, and I think the album with Sally on, again, not a lot of people like it, but I think it makes side 2 flow a lot better. And there's a melody line in Sally which is in Platinum Part 1, and it just makes the whole album more cohesive, and it's a lot better the way it was originally done. But as it stands, I'm doing the Into Wonderland version, which is the standard version. So I would say Platinum is, for side 1 alone, very good, but it's let down slightly with a couple of tracks on side 2. Punkadiddle's excellent, but the other tracks are a bit weaker, so I would realistically have to put Platinum as good, but it's top end good. Okay, QE2. For a lot of years I was a little bit disappointed with QE2. I was a bit, after hearing Platinum, I thought QE2 was a bit more stripped back and not as interesting or exciting as Platinum. But since becoming a huge Genesis fan, and obviously Phil Collins plays on the first 2 tracks, which absolutely brilliant. I love Taurus 1. Sheba, it's a bit weaker. I can take it or leave it. The other tracks though, the cover version of Arrival's brilliant. Wonderland is good, and I love the QE2 track. There's a couple of weaker ones. Celt's a bit weaker, and Molly's just kind of a bit of a filler track, but I really do like QE2, and this is the start of his rockier period. There's no songs on this one, but this is the debut album for Maggie Riley, whose voice is used to great effect on vocal harmonies. For QE2, I think I would put it a little bit above Platinum. Yeah. So I think I'll swap those two around. So we've got QE2 as top end good, Platinum a little bit further down. Okay, so the next album is 5 Miles Out. 5 Miles Out I've really liked quite a lot for many years. I love Taurus 2. I know Taurus 2 gets a bit criticised for the kind of disco-y section at the end, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. It's really uplifting track. Family Man is a good song. It's a little bit repetitive towards the end, a little bit like what Foreign Affair would be like on the next album. It's a decent song. It's not one of his finest songs. Or Robbie Doo is a brilliant track. It's weird, but it's very good. And I love Mount Tahiti, and also the title track 5 Miles Out is a great rock song. Again, a weird sounding song with the vocoder and stuff, but I think it's really good. I really like that one. So I'm going to put 5 Miles Out. It's got to be better than good. I'm going to put it in very good. I don't know if it's going to be before Incantations or not at this moment, but we'll leave it there for now. Crises. Now, Crises is when Mike Oldfield hits his commercial era full on. Side 1 is the Crises instrumental, which is brilliant. The drumming from Simon Phillips at the end. To be honest, I always used to find it a little bit monotonous at the end, but the more I listen to it, the more I appreciate Simon Phillips's drumming, and I think it's brilliant, the end part. I still prefer the first sort of 10 minutes of the track, and I find the last 10 minutes a little bit weaker, but I really like the second half of the Crises track a lot better than I used to. Moonlight Shadow, great pop song, love it. Unfortunately, played to death. You know, every radio station, they must think that's the only piece of music Mike Oldfield's ever done, Moonlight Shadow, and the beginning of Tubular Bells, because Moonlight Shadow is just so overplayed. But it's a great song. In High Places, it's a decent song. I can take it or leave it. Foreign Affair, I like it more than I used to, but I still find it a little bit repetitive. But I like focusing on the instrumental bits behind Maggie Reilly's voice, because there's a lot of variety going on there. So that kind of makes it a little bit better. But if you focus on the words she sings, it's a bit monotonous. Taurus 3, it's a decent little track, little flamenco. It's a bit filler, it's a little bit throwaway, a little bit disappointing considering the other two Taurus tracks were epics, and this one was just a tiny 2.5 minute and you're done track. And another song which a lot of people don't like, Shadow on the Wall. I think it's quite a decent rock song. I prefer the extended version, which isn't on the album, but I do like the song. So Crises, I would say it's a good effort. I would swap Platinum with Crises, because I think side 2 of Crises is stronger than side 2 of Platinum. So I'll shuffle them two round. Now, Discovery, for me, has got his best pop songs so far, all of the songs on Discovery I really like. They're all good. I actually prefer To France over Moonlight Shadow. I've always felt that way. I love Poison Arrows. I think Barry Palmer does an excellent job of that. It almost sounds like a sort of a dark, sort of a Genesis kind of song. I love Crystal Gazing, Tricks of the Light. Discovery is another really good rock song. The one I probably find the weakest out of the bunch is Saved by a Bell, but I can understand the lyrics. It's about Mike Oldfield when he was younger and he was looking for ways to find comfort and sanctuary, and the bell could be a reference to Tubular Bells. But it's the side 2, the end of side 2 I should say, The Lake. That is one brilliant instrumental. I really like The Lake. I only wished it had been a bit longer. Instead of it being a 40-minute album, if Mike Oldfield had have added about 10 minutes onto The Lake and made it a 50-minute album, I love The Lake. The Lake's really good. So for The Lake alone and for the quality of the songs on this one, I'm going to put it in, I would say it's got to be very good. But at the moment I'll keep it there because that seems fair enough, that position. Okay, so we've got The Killing Fields, which it's a little bit unfair to include this one, but it is a studio album after all. For it being a soundtrack album, obviously a lot of the music works better if you see the visuals to go with the music. So if you watch the film, although to be honest, even in the film, I think the director, and Mike Oldfield's mentioned this himself, done him a great injustice by chopping his music up and putting it too quiet in the mix and all that of the film. And I've recently watched The Killing Fields and I can fully understand Mike Oldfield's point. You know, a lot of the stuff, a lot of his music in the film, very, very unfairly butchered and, you know, put in the background. But the soundtrack album is a good album. It's a good listen from start to finish. The only thing that really lets it down is, as I've said, a lot of the music works better with the visuals. So just listen to it as an album. It's got some great tracks on. So I'm going to put it in average. But that's, like I say, that's not to say it's a bad album. It's like, I don't dislike any Mike Oldfield album, but that's average. It's obviously not as good as all the other ones that's gone before it. Okay, so Islands. Now Islands, I really like the track, the instrumental, The Wind Chimes Part 1 and 2. I love the song Flying Start with Kevin Ayers. I think that's a brilliant song. It's my favourite off the album. Islands, I could take it or leave it. I don't dislike it, I don't hate it, but it's not one of my all-time favourite Mike Oldfield songs. Magic Touch, it's a bit weak. It's got some good guitar in it, but you know, it's not one of his standout tracks. What's the other ones? You've got North Point, which I think's really good. I like North Point. You've got When the Night's on Fire, which was not included on the LP but was on the CD. It's a good track, but it sounds a bit like a demo, to be fair. Bit honest with you, it's more like a demo. It feels a bit unfinished, that one. And the other track on the album, which I haven't yet mentioned, is The Time Has Come. Again, like Islands, it's it's not one of my all-time favourite Mike Oldfield songs. So Islands has got some great moments. Side one's excellent with the wind chimes, part 1 and 2. And Flying Start's a great song. So I'm going to put Islands, I'm going to put it good, but I think I'll put it lower down good. Okay. Earth Moving, right. Great pop album for what it is. If it wasn't a Mike Oldfield album, I think it would be a very decent pop album. I like all the songs on it. I especially like See the Light. I love the title track, Earth Moving. A couple of the songs at the start are a little bit weaker. I think the album picks up sort of in the middle and then kind of sags a bit towards the end. Blue Night's a good effort. Maggie Riley's last song that she did for Mike Oldfield, it's good. It's a bit like Moonlight Shadow Part 2 or 3, or if you include Crime of Passion. Earth Moving. Yeah, is it average or is it weak? I'm going to go for weak. It's a good pop album, but as a Mike Oldfield album, it is a weak album, I have to admit. It's got some good songs on it, like I say. Innocence, very cheesy. It's kind of like a Euro pop song. It's very cheesy, but I grudgingly like it, to be honest with you, but it is a cheesy effort. Okay, so from a weak album, we go to another excellent album. What can you say about Amarok? It's up there with these top 3. Amarok. Not a lot to be said about Amarok. It's a fantastic album. It's his best album for many years. Mike Oldfield likes this album. He spoke very, very highly of it. The only thing I don't like about Amarok, which a lot of people don't either, is the Margaret Thatcher bit at the end. But I don't really mind it. It's a kind of a Mickey take of Margaret Thatcher. It's kind of like ridiculing her a bit, especially when she's tap dancing and you hear the glass break and it's like she's like danced out of a window or something, which I always find humorous. But I mean, it's basically Armageddon 2 unofficially, because a lot of the themes come back into Amarok. So Amarok is a brilliant album. Really like that one. Okay, so from an excellent album, we'll go back to a far weaker album. His last album for Virgin Records, and it's 1991's Heaven's Open. I don't mind his singing on it. I think he does a very good effort. You could tell he worked hard to get his voice to sound decent. A lot of the songs are really good. I like them. I especially like No Dream. I think that's a very good track. The title track's good. The other songs, they're not the best he's done, but they're not his worst either. So a fairly good side one. Side 2 is the one with music from the Balcony Suite. A very odd track. It kind of reminds us a bit of Crises in places, with Simon Phillips's drumming and the rockier sections. There's a lot of sort of jazzy sections in it, which I'm not really struck on. I mean, again, I don't dislike them, but I think they let the track down a little bit. I would say I like about 75% of music from the Balcony. The bit of jazzy bits that go off all over the place kind of bring the track down a bit. But his singing on side one is decent. His songs are very good to average, and the music from the balcony track on side two is it's not bad. So I think I'll put Heavens Open. I'm going to put it weak, but I'll put it before Earth Moving, because I think for the instrumental bit alone, which is what Mike Oldfield's more famous for, instrumentals, I think that's got that over Earth Moving. So it's going above Earth Moving. Now, Tubular Bells 2. I love it. Brilliant. Really like it. What I will say about Tubular Bells 2 though is, and unfortunately it's dated worse than the original, because you can hear all the 90s production in it and everything. But there's some beautiful tracks on Tubular Bells 2. Weightless, Clear Light, Tattoo, brilliant track. Sentinel, excellent, really good. A lot of people give Trevor Horn a lot of crap for messing with the album. I could see where they're coming from. I've heard parts of the album without Trevor Horn's influence, and it does sound better, but I mean, Tubular Bells 2, it was the first album I bought after listening to my mum's LPs. I bought Tubular Bells 1 and 2 actually together. When Tubular Bells first came out, Tubular Bells 2, there was an offer. You buy the Tubular Bells 2 and you get the first album for half price. So that was the very beginnings of me Mike Oldfield collection. But Tubular Bells 2 is a great album. More dated now than the original. So it's going to go into very good. Oh, wrong one. Get in there, that's it. Didn't want to go in there. It's refusing to go into very good. It wanted to go into excellent, but it's not. And I'm going to move it above. I'm going to put it at the top of very good. It's not quite excellent, but it's the top end of very good. The Songs of Distant Earth. Now, this was the very first Mike Oldfield album I had to wait for to be released since I became a true fan. And I remember an advert on the TV advertising the new Mike Oldfield album, and they played part of the music from it, and I thought, wow, I can't wait for this album to come out. And for me, this album will always be excellent. I just love it from start to finish. I love the atmospheres. I don't know if it'll go top end excellent, but I'll put it bottom end for now. But what a brilliant album. Excellent. It's better than Tubular Bells 2 in my opinion, so that looks about right. Yes, I still love the Songs of Distant Earth to this day. So next up we have Voyager. And again, this album, after the excellent Songs of Distant Earth, I felt it was a little bit a bit of a step down, but I've listened to it recently and I'm liking it a lot more and more each time I hear it. The first track, The Song of the Sun, is excellent. The second track, Celtic Rain, is a bit weaker, which is unfortunate because it's a Mike Oldfield composition. The Hero, I was always a little bit on the fence with that one. I could take it or leave it, but after listening to it recently, I kind of like The Hero a lot better now. Women of Ireland, I've always loved. I've always thought that was a highlight of the album. The next one, the title track, The Voyager, absolutely brilliant. But the other tracks, She Moves Through the Fair, really like that one. And you got Dark Island. Dark Island, I've always liked that track. Wild Goose Flaps Its Wings, I always Found it a little bit boring, I have to say, but I've listened to it a lot recently, and I have to admit I really do like that one now. I've kind of come to appreciate this album a lot more than I used to be fair. Flowers of the Forest's always been a fantastic track. I've always liked that one. And the last track, Mont Saint Michel, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. The best track by far on the album, and I've loved it since I first heard the album. And it's a bit now like a precursor towards Music of the Spheres with the orchestral music and stuff. So the Voyager, as I said, it's certainly gone up a lot from what I used to think of it. I would have probably had it as between good and average, but I'm going to put the Voyager, I'm going to put it as, let's see, I'm going to put it as very good, but I think I might have it above Discovery. No, not that far above Discovery. That far above Discovery. It's getting a bit cluttered now. A bit hard to drag and drop. Tubular Bells 3. Yeah, I remember going to see the premiere of this album back in 1998 at Horse Guards Parade. I went down with my friend and we had a fantastic day. It was the first ever Mike Oldfield convention I attended, and it was the first and only time I saw Mike live, which is unfortunate, but it was a great experience. But getting back to the album, it follows a different structure to the other two Tubular Bells albums. It's a bit more commercial. It's got a bit more dance music on, a bit more dancey numbers. It's got a clone of Moonlight Shadow in the track Man in the Rain. And at times it feels a little bit like Crises, the album Crises, because it's got another flamenco track on there. It's got the aforementioned Moonlight Shadow type track on there. So it's a kind of a weird sort of hybrid between a Tubular Bells album and the album Crises. But I would say it's not as good as the other two Tubular Bells albums. It's the weakest in the trilogy for me. But I love the opening track, The Source of Secrets. Watchful Eye's a little bit, it's just an atmospheric number. It's a little bit weaker. Jewel in the Crown is fantastic. It's excellent. Outcast is brilliant. It's this album's version of the Caveman section. Serpent Dream, again, like the flamenco track on Crises. The Inner Child, a bit weaker for me. I could take it or leave that one. You know, I couldn't listen to it on its own as a standalone track. It has to be listened within the context of the album. Man in the Rain, good song. Basically just Moonlight Shadow Part 3. After the aforementioned Blue Night from the Earth Moving album. Top of the Morning is good. I like that one. Moonwatch, another atmospheric number, a bit better than The Watchful Eye. Secrets and Far Above the Clouds, a really good closer for the album. So Tubular Bells 3, like I say, nowhere near as good as 1 and 2, but I don't know, I still think it's, let's see, I'm going to go with good. Whereabouts in good shall I put it? Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Yes, I'll leave Tubular Bells 3 there, because I think it is slightly higher than those other albums in that category. Okay, next up we have Guitars. And once again, Guitars, after Tubular Bells 3, I thought it was a bit of a come down. But I've actually come to appreciate Guitars better than Tubular Bells 3 because it's more of a traditional album from Mike Oldfield where he's using his main instrument, the guitar, and it's very clever and creative how he's used the guitar to create all the other instruments on the album. Just by playing the guitar, he's getting all these other sounds, and I thought that was very clever. The highlights of this album have got to be Cochise, really like that one. The opening track, Muse, is just a nice gentle number just to ease you into the album. Embers is atmospheric, I like Embers. Summer Day, it's one of the weaker tracks on the album for me, to be honest. I know Mike Oldfield ranks it quite highly because he put it on his self-made compilation, 2 sides, and he had a lot of good things to say about this one. I like it, but I just think it's the same tune, but it just gets a little bit more intense as it goes on. It's not a bad tune. Out of Sight, brilliant rocker. B Blues, I really like that one. Four Winds is by far the best track on the album. It's a 9.5 minute instrumental. Well, they're all instrumentals, but this one feels more like a more developed instrumental than the other ones. Enigmatism, I'm impressed I said that in one go without faltering. Enigmatism, I like that one. It's got a little melody line from Let There Be Light in that one, if you haven't noticed. Out of Mind is a great track. From the Ashes, it's a nice album closer. It's just a reprise of Embers, but you know, it does the job of closing the album nicely. Guitars, let's see, where shall we put this one? I think I'll stick with good, but I might put it. I'm going to put it above Tubular Bells 3. Because as time goes on, I have become more appreciative of Guitars. I like that one a bit better than Tubular Bells 3 now. Okay, the Millennium Bell. Right. It has to be said, I think for me it's Mike Oldfield's weakest album ever. And that might sound a bit odd because it is a full instrumental album. Well, apart from a couple of moments, but it's mainly instrumental. But I don't know, I just think it was a very rushed album. It was cashing in on the new millennium, everybody was doing it, and it was rush released. I don't think Mike really developed it as well as he could have. The segues between the tracks are very weak. I'm not struck on the kind of singing on Sunlight Shining Through Cloud. I mean, it's another album which has grown on us over time, but to be honest, it's a pretty weak album. Let's see, I'm going to put this one. Oh, incidentally, I've since heard the kind of early version of this album. You can get on bootleg, and I actually think some of it sounds a lot better than what he actually put out. I mean, there's an extra track on it called Excalibur, which is brilliant, and some of the earlier versions of the tracks that were included on the album, I don't know, they just sound a bit better. For some strange reason, I think Mike Oldfield kind of made them worse when he released the album. That said, though, the live DVD of Berlin 2000, where he plays about 75% of this album live, I think the tracks on this Millennium Bell album, I think they worked a lot better in a live setting. And I think he should have really just released a live album of this and forgot about the studio album, because as a studio album I think it's a little bit weak. So yeah, I'm going to put the Millennium Bell. I'm not too struck on the cover either. I think the cover art is looks a bit cheesy and a bit cheap, you know. So I'm going to put the Millennium Bell. It's going to have to be at the bottom. It's a weak album. No. Get in there. Know your place, Millennium Bell. Right, so the weak ones, we've got Heaven's Open, Earth Moving, and the Millennium Bell. I'm going to leave it like that because I do prefer the other two albums over the Millennium Bell. I think as a pop album, I think Earth Moving does a better job than what the Millennium Bell does as an instrumental album, if that makes any sense. But again, there's not one Mike Oldfield album I don't like. I like them all. The Millennium Bell, just because it's the very bottom, there is still some merits on it, and I do enjoy bits of it. Okay, so Tres Lunas. When this first came out, after being disappointed with the Millennium Bell, I always felt Tres Lunas was like a step up. It was a kind of a continuation of the Songs of Distant Earth, and you know how much I love that album. Listening to it over the years and more recently, I don't think it's stood the test of time as well as the Songs of Distant Earth. I mean, for one thing, all the tracks are separate. It's not like each track segues into the other. Some good moments on it. A lot of people don't like the synthesized saxophone that sort of dominates the majority of the tracks. I don't mind it, to be honest. I can understand how some people don't like it. Sometimes it does get a little bit intrusive, but it's a step up, definitely a step up from the Millennium Bell as far as I'm concerned, and I do like quite a lot of the tracks on this album. The title track in particular is great. I love Return to the Origin. Turtle Island's a good one. Viper's good. Misty's good, but it's got that saxophone on it, but it's still a good track. The rest of them, you know, they're not as good. They're not sort of up there with the ones I've mentioned, but it's still a good album. It's still a step up from the Millennium Bell. So I'm gonna put it average, and it's gonna be before. That's it. It's gonna be before the Killing Fields. Okay, Tubular Bells 2003. Absolutely love this version. I know a lot of people say it sounds sterile, there's no emotion in it or anything. Yes and no. I think a lot of this album, some of the stuff he's done has really improved some of the sections, some of the tracks. I don't like the opening part with the piano. It sounds a bit too synthesized. I prefer the original, but tracks like I have to say, particularly on side 2, I think Harmonic sounds better, Peace sounds a lot better, and I think ambient guitar sounds a lot better on this new version. A lot of the other parts, I prefer the original 1973 version, but I think for side 2, I think side 2 sounds a lot better on this 2003 version than it did on the 1973 version. So I'm going to go good for this one. It's going to be in good. And where shall I put it? I think I'm going to go above Tubular Bells 3. Yeah, because Tubular Bells was a better album than Tubular Bells 3 anyway. And this new 2003 version sounds pretty decent. Okay, Light and Shade. This was his longest album he ever recorded. It's 2 CDs worth. And when I first got it, I loved it. I loved tracks like Angelique, Blackbird, The Gate, one of the weaker ones. First Steps, I really like First Steps. It's 10 minutes and it's an epic track. Closer is it's not bad. It's a little bit Celtic, I should say. Our Father, I always loved Our Father, especially when it ramps up in the middle. I really like that bit. I don't know what it is, but to me it always reminds us of kind of a Ennio Morricone sort of track. I don't know why, but it does. Rocky, nice piano piece. Sunset, yes, that's another good one. Nice closer for the first disc. And Pres de Toy, that one is basically just a revamped version of Closer, and it's a bonus track on the UK edition of the album. The Shade CD, I like half of it, and I can take or leave the other half. I quite like Quicksilver and Resolution. I like them too. I know a lot of fans don't really like them because they're a bit more dancey and a bit more electronic. Slipstream, take it or leave it. Surfing, it's kind of like he's trying to do another 5 miles out. I used to quite like it, but I've kind of fallen out of favour with it a bit recently. It's another one I can leave. Tears of an Angel, some nice guitar in it. Again, it's not as good as what I used to think it was. Romance, take it or leave it. Ringscape, absolutely brilliant. Probably the best track on CD too, I should say. And Nightshade, another nice final track. And then the bonus track, Lakme Fruity, put me teeth in. Lakme Fruity Loops. It's alright. It's I can take it or leave it. First CD, I would probably think I like the majority of the tracks. The second CD, I like probably half of them and kind of take or leave the other half. But I would have put this one higher actually when I first got it, but over time, he's done better. So I'm going to put Light and Shade as it's going to be an average album, I think. You don't like going in the places I want you to go, do you? Right, average. I'm going to put it above Tres Lunas. Yeah, it's the best one out of the average album. Okay, Music of the Spheres. Loved it from when I first bought it. I still love it now. I think it's a fine album. Very, very good. It's fully orchestral. The only instrument Mike Oldfield plays on it is a classical guitar, but he wrote all the music, all the melodies, everything. It's still very much a Mike Oldfield album, even though he takes more or less a back seat on this one. Great piano playing from Lang Lang. It gets a bit of criticism for sounding a bit like Tubular Bells. Some people have said this could actually be another Tubular Bells album. It starts off like Tubular Bells, but it goes off on a tangent and it finds its own identity and everything. The first track, Harbinger, very Tubular Bells opening sounding. Animus, nice gentle track, that one. Silhouette, atmospheric. Shabda, lovely choral voices in this one. The Tempest, good track. Builds and builds and builds. It starts off kind of like calm, and then obviously it builds to the Tempest, which is what the track's supposed to be all about. Harbinger Reprise, obviously just a reprise from Harbinger. On My Heart, I'm a little bit, can take or leave the singing bit, the kind of high pitched singing. I'm not really a fan of that kind of singing, but it's a nice track. It's a nice little sort of track to connect the piece. Aurora, brilliant, love it. Prophecy, great. In fact, all these are great. On My Heart, reprise, just a little reprise from On My Heart. Again, it's it's a quick track, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. My favourite track on the whole album, Harmonia Mundi. I absolutely love this track. I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of music Mike Oldfield's ever written. It's certainly a highlight of this album for me. And the other side, Empyreum. I don't know if I've pronounced that right, but you know what the track is. And Musica Universalis or something like that. It's a great ending to the album. It ends a bit like Tubular Bells Part 1, the climax. It kind of, the piano starts playing the melody and the instruments like overlay on top of it, and yeah, so I can understand people are saying, yeah, it just sounds like another Tubular Bells. It does in places, but in other places it totally goes off on its own direction in that. So Music of the Spheres, for me, it's another one of these excellent albums, so it's going straight up the top in excellent. I'm going to put it, I think I'll put it above Songs of Distant Earth. Okay, Man on the Rocks. Man on the Rocks, I loved it when it first came out, and I think mainly one of the reasons why I loved it so much was because we were starved of a Mike Oldfield album for 6 years, and it was like, wow, a new Mike Oldfield album's come out, and I was just totally like on a high, like the buzz of having a new Mike Oldfield album. I like Luke Spiller's singing. I think there's some fantastic guitar work in this album. The tracks are really good. I like the lyrics. The only track I'm not really struck on is Following the Angels. I think it goes on a bit too long, and it's one of the slower tracks on the album. But all the rest of them, I like them. There's a great pop song with Sailing. I like Moonshine. Man on the Rocks is an absolutely phenomenal track. I love how it builds and builds, and then it just comes to a massive crescendo, like the singing and all that. Castaway, amazing guitar solo in that. Minutes, one of the weaker tracks. Dreaming in the Wind, I love it. I prefer the instrumental version on the bonus disc that you got with some of the album, some of the releases of this album. You got like a bonus disc with the instrumentals on. Nuclear, brilliant track. Chariots, brilliant track. I've already mentioned Following the Angels. Irene, one of the weaker ones. And finishing off with I Give Myself Away. I would say this one's. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Sometimes when I listen to it, I really like it, and other times I just think, it's just one of them throwaway tracks. It's a bit like I don't know what it is, but when I listen to it, it kind of always reminds us of I Got Rhythm for some weird reason. I don't know why, um, but yeah, I do like it. It's the only track on this album that Mike Oldfield didn't write. It's a cover version, but yeah, it's decent, and it's a nice ending to the album. Uh, but if you bought the special edition of this album, you got the bonus disc with the instrumentals. And sometimes I actually prefer listening to the instrumentals over listening to the vocal tracks. And then if you got the deluxe box set, you got like all the demos with Mike Oldfield singing. And I know it's a bit more personal, Mike Oldfield singing the songs, but I have to admit his voice on those demos isn't very good. Like, I mean, he did a much better job singing the songs on Heaven's Open than he did on these demos. I think over the years he lost the ability to sing as well as he did back in the early 90s. And a lot of people say they prefer the demos because they're more personal, but nah, I've got to admit I prefer listening to the Luke Spiller versions. But that's just me. So as I'm putting the vocal album and not the instrumental album into the tier list, I think instrumental it would come as very good, but as the vocal album, I'm going to go for good. It has dropped down a bit in me ranking over the years, but I'm going to put it in good. But whereabouts in good shall I put it? I'm going to put it just above Islands and just under Platinum. Now, the final album, unfortunately, because Mike's now retired, nobody saw that one coming. Nobody thought that Return to Ommadawn would be his last album, but unfortunately it is. I love it. I love Return to Ommadawn. A lot of people saying that it's a kind of a half-baked return to form, but I think it's really good. I like it. I'm going to put it up in excellent. It's up there with the top tier Mike Oldfield albums. I especially like side 2, Return to Ommadawn Part 2, the second part of it. In the 10-minute mark where he kind of does the on horseback sort of little instrumental bit. I just love that bit. I think that's like it's kind of Mike Oldfield's goodbye sort of tune. If you listen to it, you feel like you get the sense that he's wrapping things up. He's coming to an end, and that's a nice little coda for his career. That I know we got the demo of Tubular Bells 4 after this, but this is like Mike saying goodbye, like 10 minutes into part 2 of Return to Ommadawn. So no question about it, it's going up into very good, excellent I should say. Right, so looking at this list here, I might shuffle them around a little bit. I'm happy with the weak column. The average column, yeah, I think that one's okay as well. The good one, let's have a look. Guitars, Tubular Bells 2003, Tubular Bells 3. Yeah, I think good's okay as well. Let's see. Very good. Let's have a look at that one. Very good. Tubular Bells 2, I think has to be top. Incantations, let's see. I mean, Incantations is closer to his classic trilogy of albums, isn't it, than the other ones. Instrumental, Voyager, I think, has to come above the pop song Discovery. Yeah, I think that column's okay as well. Okay, this is going to be a tough one because I absolutely love all these albums, and it's very, very hard to put them in any particular order. But let's see. I'm gonna go. I think Amarok is actually better than Tubular Bells. So I'm gonna, if it'll let us. There we go. Right. Okay, so Amarok. I think Amarok's going to be my favourite Mike Oldfield album at this rate, isn't it? Which is no bad thing, like, because it's such a brilliant album. So Amarok, I'm gonna put Armageddon's gonna come above Tubular Bells as well, I think. Come on. Right. Hurgust Ridge. Let's see. I think I might. No, I'm gonna leave Hurgust Ridge above Return to Armageddon because Hurgust Ridge is one of the sort of classic 3 albums, isn't it? I think over time as well, I've kind of appreciated Music of the Spheres more than I have the Songs of Distant Earth. And I mean, I've played the Songs of Distant Earth to death, so I'm going to keep Music of the Spheres above the Songs of Distant Earth. And yeah, I think it's fair to say I'll keep Return to Armageddon above Music of the Spheres, because Return to Armageddon was kind of like, went back to the days when Mike Oldfield played all the instruments himself, as opposed to on Music of the Spheres where he only plays the classical guitar. And I mean, they're both great albums, but I think I'll put Return to Armageddon above Music of the Spheres just for that reason. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that, to be honest. So there you go. I've surprised myself as much as anybody else. So it's official now, then. My favourite Mike Oldfield album of all time is Amarok. But then that could change again tomorrow. The bottom 2 tier lists, the average and the weak, I think they're cemented. But I think everything from sort of like top half of good up to excellent, I think could just change around a little bit, you know. But anyway, that was me tier listing. I know it's been a long one, but I just wanted to give you a little insight into each album and what I thought of the tracks, what ones I liked a lot and which ones I wasn't too struck on. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making it. It's been my first tier list. I've just downloaded the program, like I say, on my phone, and I've just recorded it just talking into my mobile phone, but I think it's turned out alright. But anyway, there's my tier list. Just write in the comments what albums you would have in each tier. It would be interesting to see different people saying different things. And thank you, and I'll see you again soon.